Retro.
Hey, this is Lauren Mary Kim, and I'm the stunt double for Ahsoka Tano in Clone Wars and the armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Hello, welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
It's Friday, and that means it's time for our weekly look at some Star Wars news. But before we get into that, Jay, where can we be found on social media?
We are very easily found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right, this is where I drop out of my radio voice. But anyways, the dish is aligned, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So a lot of news this week. I don't know what we're actually going to get through all of it, but we're going to do our best. Up first, we are getting a Star Wars movie in 2025.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. It's just the re-release of Revenge of the Sith coming to theaters, just like they did The Phantom Menace and Return of the Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back. Did they have Empire Strikes? No, it doesn't matter. But anyway, the point is that we are getting a limited theatrical re-release of Revenge of the Sith on April 25th for 1 week only. And this will be, of course, in celebration of the 20th anniversary. So there is that to be excited about. I can't wait, Jay. I wish I could get my tickets now. But
oh, I know.
I would have them. I'm super excited about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as much as I've been excited about the re-releases of the other movies, there is just something about Revenge of the Sith. And I know so many people are jumping on social media with their excitement as well. I've seen so many posts, especially in reaction to this amazing poster that I know we're going to talk about here in a few seconds. But I'm with you. Like, I want it. And I'm like Farouk Assault. I want it now. Give it to me now.
Yeah. I mean, I loved seeing The Phantom Menace in theaters last year, and what was great about that was, if nothing else, the pod race on the big screen. That's that sequence needs to be seen on the big screen at some point in your life if you can make it happen. For this Revenge of the Sith, I can't wait to see the opening battle. Right after the introduction, I can't wait to see Anakin and Obi-Wan duking it out with their sabers, and then Yoda and Darth Sidious. That all that will just be fantastic, and getting John Williams' score on a nice surround sound system in a theater, all of that, it just makes it ideal. They're also offering it in 4DX, which is a technology that features high-tech motion chairs that sync with 21 other different effects. So,
wow,
I've never done this. I know people who have, and I, from what I understand, is like I wouldn't bring a soda or popcorn with me if I'm going to watch it in that form, because your chairs move and they slide around kind of, and to keep you in sync with the things that are happening on the screen. It sounds like it's a lot of fun. I know there's a theater or two around here that offer it, but I think I'm content just to go sit in a theater, and well, it's hard to experience it the exact same way because, one, there's reserved seating, and two, theaters tend to have comfier chairs than they did in the past. But go out at the Alamo Draft House where I go catch it. I'm really excited to go check it out that way.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I would want to be jostled around in a chair. We used to have something like that. We had this park called Jogga Lake, and there was this Kodak theater that you could go into. And it was, kind of like a Star Tours thing almost, but not quite as jostly, where you would go in and you would experience this cinematic presentation, and you would be sitting, but very similar to this, I'm assuming, where you get all of the different effects and whatnot. And I'm sure that this is light years ahead of what we had back in the 1980s. But at any rate, I definitely would rather sit there and enjoy it myself as well. So no popcorn all over me, and no loose wire jokes, right? But I have to say real quick before we dive into more with Revenge of the Sith here, I wish that they would re-release Attack of the Clones in theaters, because that is the only Star Wars movie that I have never seen in a theater, because that was when, back in 2002, was when I was having babies and having some health issues, and so I really just missed that whole era, and I didn't actually get to see Attack of the Clones until it came out on HBO. So
Right.
so I would
Yeah.
love to experience that one in a theater, but I don't know if we'll get that one. I'm hoping we will.
Well, I was thinking about that, and here's the deal on that. I guess it was what Return of the Jedi a couple of years ago that kind of started this recent trend of doing stuff for the anniversaries. Of course, it was the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, and then so that would have been 2023. Last year, 2024, they did the Phantom Menace for its 25th. Now we're getting Revenge of the Sith for its 20th here.
Mhm.
So if we're going by the anniversaries that end with a 5 or a 0, the next opportunity would be 2027.
Yeah,
But
and
that's
we
the
all know
50th
it's
anniversary
yes.
of A New Hope. And if
So I
they're
was gonna
going to
say,
do
we
a
all know what
movie,
that is.
yeah, if they're going to do a movie re-release that year, I'm assuming it's going to be A New Hope. That doesn't mean they
Right.
couldn't do both, one for a week and then a month later do another one for a week or something like that. And that'd be really
Mhm.
cool. And we may be getting a Star Wars movie later that year anyway. We don't know yet.
Right.
We'll find out.
Right.
Hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed and see what happens there. But I'm with you. I mean, I'll go see any Star Wars movie in the theater at this point. And yeah, so hopefully they get around to hopefully they keep this up and we're getting a re-release on an annual basis on this,
Mhm.
just for the 1 week. I mean, it gets it does well enough at the box office to warrant it, especially in a time like April, which is not necessarily the busiest time of the year for movies anyway. So
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of people are off, I'm just thinking about schools and colleges and whatnot, and I think by that time, probably most colleges have had their spring break, but
yeah.
high schools maybe not, so that might be something that would be fun to do with the family over,
Hmm.
just that time. So, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
know I'm gonna be seeing it.
Yeah, at that point, my boys in high school and college will have had spring break well in the rearview mirror by the time
Yeah.
April 25th rolls around. So there's that. Yeah. But so, anyways, I can't wait. You mentioned the poster. Once again, Matt Ferguson, who's done the re release posters for Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace and a few others. He did one for The Empire Strikes Back, celebrating its anniversary, and for um, Rogue One. And I think he did another one, but he's got a new poster out for this as well. And just like the others, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
There's two versions. There is the the one shot teaser, and then there's a wider version of it that can be used for like a billboard or something. But it's got Anakin in the middle ground, Darth Vader's helmet in the background, and then kind of like perched right above the title, which is on the bottom of the poster. You've got the silhouette of Anakin and Obi-Wan in their saber duel with some Mustafar imagery, images from the beginning of the movie with the giant space battle. And if you get to the wide version of the poster, you can see more, of course, in the background, including the burning Jedi temple. um,
Yeah.
Lots of red, black, and gray, perfect tones for the spirit of this movie.
Absolutely, especially in hindsight, because anyone that's seen Revenge of the Sith, they know exactly what happens at the end of this, whereas
Uh-huh.
you couldn't have released a poster like this going into it for its first release, because this would have just been way too I mean, we knew that Anakin was going to become Darth Vader, we just didn't know
Yeah.
how, but this definitely would have given a little bit too much away. But I love the layering on this, as you
Hmm.
mentioned, just with the helmet and then Anakin in front of that, and then Obi-Wan and Anakin kind of in front of that silhouetted on the red. And it's just, yeah, it's breathtaking.
So I went to Matt Ferguson's online store, and it's not available for sale. And I was crossed my fingers and hoped that maybe some of his past posters would be available. And no, none of them were either. So
Dang.
yeah,
Yeah. Now
yeah.
I
So I'm gonna
wonder
track
if
him down on
any of
this.
the yeah, definitely. We'll definitely have to check back. But I wonder if there's going to be any other merch. Some of the theaters had put out some different types of merch for some of the releases, and I'm hoping that they're going to do one for this, because I think it was, I want to say Cinemark for Return of the Jedi had a special popcorn tin or something like that. I
Oh yeah,
remember somebody was
yeah.
able to get a hold of, and I wasn't able to get a hold of that, but that it'd be really cool to see.
Indeed, indeed. So once again, look for Revenge of the Sith at your local theater, hopefully on April 25th, and make sure you catch it quick because it's only going to be there for a week. All right, so we're getting closer and closer to the debut of season 2 of Andor, and I got into my rewatch of season 1 in earnest this week, which was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it was. We'll talk about that some other time. But ahead of that, we've got a new poster and a new teaser trailer for the upcoming season. First off, let's just go ahead and get the poster out of the way. It is kind of an image of Cassian Andor looking off to the left, side eye from,
Mhm.
and then he's got the Death Star behind him, and his image is you kind of translucent a little bit, so you can see the Death Star through him, the lights of the Death Star more accurately. It's cool. I was ready to watch the show. If I didn't have an interest in the show, I'm not sure this would make me watch it, but it's fine. I suppose it does its job. What do you think?
Mhm, it's very gritty, and I noticed that, Cassian is pictured with the, token little lock of hair hanging
Oh yeah.
down on his forehead, so I wonder if that was very intentional on the part of, whoever created this, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely synonymous with the feel of Andor overall. It's very gritty,
Mhm.
very stark in contrast to, what we see from a lot of the other artwork, especially like what we were just talking about, so it's yeah, it's definitely gets to the point, that's for sure.
Matches the tone and the color,
It does,
that we're used
indeed.
to. So,
Yeah, very gritty.
all right. Well, enough of that. Let's get into the teaser, which is the real exciting part. And this thing is like action packed. Right off the
Yeah.
bat, though, music.
Mhm.
So it kind of has a rock song here that's called "The Revolution Starts Now" by Steve Earle that plays through all this. And at first, that caught me off a little guard. At first, that caught me a little off guard until I remembered that they did a Hut Tease version of Major Tom for the teaser
For
for Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew, yep.
And then, of course, we
I
never
thought
heard
the
that
same
song in the
thing.
entirety of that series. So um, I'm pretty sure we're not going to hear The Revolution Starts Now during the series. It was just something that they used for the teaser. But what do you
Mhm.
think about that?
Yeah, I'm same way. When it first started, I was like, "Wait, what's this?" I thought maybe it was just a little different bit, and I thought maybe that I clicked on the wrong link. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, is this the trailer? Is this the right one? Is this the teaser?" But, that I thought the same thing. I was like, "Oh, yeah, they just did this for Skeleton Crew too." So I'm wondering if they're just trying to appeal to more of a wider audience kind of a thing and just making it a little bit more modern. That's all I could think of, but, I
Yeah,
mean, I didn't hate it, but it definitely did have a different tone.
yeah. Well, that's it. I think it set a tone for this teaser, and they can chop up footage from the season any way they want to make the show look a particular way in order to try and sell it to the audience. Kind of what you're talking about right here. And I think what they were going for here is that, one of the things that we've been talking about with season 1 of Andor is I've kind of commented on the rewatchability of it here. And, so I've just
Mhm.
started my first ever rewatch. When it was coming out, I was watching the episodes 2 and 3 times so I could prepare for this podcast to talk about the show, but I haven't watched it since. With this, they seem to be getting away from a lot of the drama. I'm sure it's still going to have drama, don't get me wrong, but broodiness, I suppose, of the series, because this looks much more action packed, fast paced. Um, you get what I'm saying? I mean, just
Yeah.
not quite as dark as that first season was, and it still could be. Like I said, you can cut up a season's worth of footage however you want, and to convey it however you would like to. And so we might just be getting the action scenes here and stuff that there's a little bit of I don't want to say comedic flair, but cheekiness almost to this a little bit. The whole teaser ends with uh, Cassian kind of in a suit with his hair well coiffed, and he kind of gives a wink and and a nod to somebody off there. And
Mhm.
so, I'm talking. So again, that may just be the angle they're telling us now to get us to watch it. Although it's one of the best well-regarded shows, critically acclaimed of anything that showed up Star Wars on Disney Plus so far.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and it's funny that you say that, the cheekiness, I think that's a great way to put it, and then Cassian at the very end giving that little smirk, I was like, "Wow, that's like an Ahsoka smirk right there. That's something."
Uh,
But I'm with you, it's all of us that loved Andor the first time around, I mean, we're gonna tune in regardless, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter
yeah,
what they do with the teaser, we're gonna gobble it up, we're gonna love it, so that's why I'm wondering if it's just to appeal to a wider audience, but I do think it's gonna be a lot more fast-paced this time just because of the fact that we're getting 3 episodes each time,
yep,
so we're not gonna be able to really marinate on any one factor of the story, like we did for Narkina 5, for example. We were there for how many episodes in a row,
right,
and they're just not going to have the time to be able to do that so that they can get the story told and get us through the timeline that we have before, going up to the events of Rogue One. So it's going to be a ride. And I think that that's going to be both exciting, but in some ways it might be I'm afraid that it might be so fast paced that we might be having our head spin and going, okay, oh, wait, what did we just see? Let's break this down into smaller parts. So I know I'm going to enjoy it, but I hope that I don't have to think too hard about it. You know what I mean?
sure, sure. Well, since you brought up the whole format that it's coming out 3 episodes a week, let's go ahead and cover. We'll detour from the teaser itself real quick to talk about the schedule.
Okay.
So the first 3 episodes come on April 22nd, so right after Star Wars Celebration Japan. These episodes were written by Tony Gilroy and they are being directed by Ariel Kleiman. Then we get the next 3 episodes on April 29th, which were written by Bo Willman, and these are also directed by Ariel Kleiman. Then May 6th features episodes 7 through 9, and those are written by Dan Gilroy, directed by Janice Metz. And then on May 13th, we get the final 3 episodes written by Tom Bissell, directed by Alonso Ruiz Palacios. And as we know, every 3 episodes they're jumping forward a year in the timeline. So we're going to pick up 1 year after season 1, and then it'll be 2, 3, and then and then the show is supposed to lead right into the beginning of Rogue One. I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. It's the okay. On one hand, it's cool that we are not going to have to wait on a weekly basis, to get, they're not going to parcel it out on one. So we're going to get the conclusion of each story arc that week. And
Mhm.
so, it's kind of like the episode of the week format, except for it's going to be much longer. On the other hand, you know, I'm not as big a fan as binging. I like to be able to discuss this over a longer period of time and concentrate on an episode at a time. And Our friend Alan Voivod on Star 7x7 did a Instagram reel about this, and he basically said this is all being done for the purpose of getting it to this year's Emmys. That the run has to
Oh,
conclude
okay.
by a certain date in May, and so they've crammed it into that. Okay, that's
Mhm.
fine, but I mean, sure, I guess Disney put themselves in this bind because they don't typically like to release a new Star Wars show at the same time they have an MCU show out on Disney Plus, and we're getting Daredevil Born Again starting next week.
Okay.
That's like a dozen episodes or so. So they're really going to be, they really created this crunch for themselves if that was their aim. I mean, if that's the case, I would have been fine with them just giving it to us like in May after that deadline and then spreading it out
Yeah.
into the summer. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a compromise between the weekly format and then the binging format. So
Do we have any idea what the runtime on each of these are
not that I've
as
seen
far as
yet.
the episodes? Because I'm wondering, I mean, if they're in line with what we've gotten before, I mean, you think about 3 episodes a week, you could
Yep.
sit down and really make this into, like the Star Wars movie of the week. You know what I mean? If especially if they're a good 35, 40 minutes long. I mean, you think about 3 episodes, that's an hour and a half worth of Star Wars every week. That's like a movie.
Yeah, it's going to present some challenges for us to talk about on the
Yeah,
podcast.
we can do
uh,
it. We can do
Man, the way I do notes though, that might suffer a little bit, but
I know, you might
we'll
have to
figure
pare
something
them
out.
down just a little bit. You're so good at the details.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, let's talk about the teaser then, because we still got a few more stories to get to. I'm not going to break it down shot by shot. It's only a minute and a half. I'll try and remember to put a link to the teaser in the show notes. And if not, you can just go to Star Wars YouTube page and see the whole thing, or StarWars.com has got it there as well. I'll just pick a scene or two out. We get plenty of images of Cassian in this new TIE fighter. I can't remember what they call it.
Is that
People
a
have been
TIE
calling it something.
Defender?
No, I think it's a TIE Avenger or something like
TIE
that.
Avenger. Okay, that's yes.
Right, because the Defender is the one that's got the 3 sets of wings
Mm-hmm.
that we saw in Rebels. Plenty of shots of that. We get to see plenty of stormtroopers throughout this thing, which is nice because they weren't as prominent in the first season of Andor. What's something that stood out to you?
Quite a few things, honestly. I mean, there was a lot of rioting going on, and which I can only imagine is probably the Gorman massacre, especially
Mhm.
since we get so many shots of Mon Mothma. And, there's a lot of things going on with Mon Mothma. One of those that really sticks out is that whole party scene. And I'm wondering if that is her, I can't remember her daughter's name, but I'm wondering if that's her wedding and if this is what's
Oh,
going on,
yeah.
like a reception or something at her wedding. So that's a big one that stood out to me. And hello, K2. I
Yep.
hope we get him a lot. And I know we got the one shot of the comic, but that tells how the two of them met. But I really, really want to see this in Andor. So that's a big one. And then we get some of our old friends, just kind of glimpsing here and there. We get Cyril and his mom and Krennic and the Death
Yep.
Star. Oof. So I mean, there's of course, like the entire trailer is just flash after flash after flash, and why it's called a teaser, for a
Mhm.
reason. But those are some big ones, and of course Saw Gerrera. And I am intrigued, though, I will say, by this wheat covered planet.
Yeah,
Any
that's what I was
ideas?
referring to with the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
They're pursuing someone through that and shooting at them. Um,
Thoughts? What planet do you think that is?
I hesitate to speculate simply because they keep introducing new planets. I mean,
Hmm. That's fair.
Coruscant was like the only one that I can think of we were familiar with from the first season of
Hmm.
Andor. Otherwise, they came up with Ferrix and Narkina 5 and all those other places that were brand new to us at the time. But one of the things that stood out to me is that there is a shot that's taken from the inside of a bunker. There's a body lying on the floor, and we look out the doors of the bunker and we see a number of X-Wings take off and then some other transport. And I'll have to go back and look at it a little bit more closely. But you mentioned Saw Gerrera shows up in this teaser again. He's yelling, "Remember this moment! You're here. You're right here, and you're ready to fight." Like, what, were those the Cavern Angels? They had a squad of X-Wings.
Ooh, nice.
That's a
Yeah.
possibility there. You mentioned Cyril Karn, Deidre Miro also shows up
Oh, yeah.
through
Mhm.
this. We get some other shots of X-wings as well, and that's just kind of the thing. That was with Andor, the first season, it's really really good. And as I'm watching it, this started. Like I said, I started this rewatch of the first season to prepare for this, and I'm going to try and get an episode or a couple episodes knocked out every few days so I can have the whole thing done by the time this comes in. But it was missing a lot of stuff like that. The X-wings and the rebellion imagery and things like that. And they didn't have a whole lot of hardcore, even Imperial imagery that we're used to on
Mhm.
this. So, at any rate, it was encouraging to see so much that was familiar here. You can still tell a brand new story, but giving us those things that help place us in that galaxy is a real boon. And it was great to see that.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, my speculation is that I think it might be Dantooine,
Oh,
because
okay.
in A New Hope, the
Oh,
Princess
yeah.
Leia
Yeah.
throws them off and says, "They're on Dantooine," and then when they investigate, they're like, "We have found the remnants of a rebel base, but we suspect it has been deserted for some time." So,
Right.
and just the fact that you see that body lying there, it's almost like they're deserting it, So I
Mhm.
wonder if it might be Dantooine.
Could be.
So
Could be.
that could be a fun one. But one more thing too that I wanted to point out on this is there is absolutely, well, there's a couple things. One, no reference whatsoever to Kino Loy or any of the potential survivors from Narkina 5. So there
Uh-huh.
was that. And then also we also get our little glimpse of Luthen Rail in here too. And
Yep.
there's only one. and he's not looking very Luthen Rail-ish. He's looking pretty rough, you know?
Well, it could be a disguise too. We saw him do that in season 1, so
True,
who
true.
knows on that. All right. Well, I hate to abandon the discussion about this, but the show's going to be here before we know it, and we got some other stuff that we have to talk about. So, yeah, just be on the lookout for Andor on April 22nd. In books and comics news, we have the release of Reign of the Empire, Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed. This week, I got my copy. Jay, I know you got yours as well, but I don't think you've had a chance to dive into this yet, have you?
No, I haven't. I pre-ordered it on Audible, and I will admit the date slipped past me until I got my my notification and said, "Your pre-order is now ready." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. It
Yeah.
is out." So, yeah, I unfortunately have not had a chance to dive in, but I'm eager to hear your first impressions.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity between business calls today, well, last couple days, to get through a few chapters. I'm not exactly sure which chapter I'm on, but I'm through page 50, 52, something like that. I'm pleasantly surprised by this. It fits in right after Revenge of the Sith by a few weeks, and it makes a number of references to things that we know, including Andor, including Rebels, including Bad Batch. Not directly, but you recognize what they're talking about if you've watched all those shows.
Mhm.
And so, Saw Gerrera, uh, Bail Organa, and Mon Mothma seem to be our lead characters, and there's some other characters that they're in their orbit that'll be around on a regular basis. And it's quite fascinating so far. It really is kind of talking about how the Empire is coalescing after Emperor Palpatine announced that the Republic is being reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. And you're getting little drops of things that happened in those first weeks after that happened. And then, I don't want to spoil too much or really anything, but we had a very early scene right off the bat where Mon Mothma is on Coruscant and she's surveying some of the destruction from the Battle of Coruscant. It's not that the city was attacked, but ships fell out of the sky and destroyed buildings and caused a lot of devastation there. And so, like I said, it slots in real nicely with its references to everything else. It takes a whole bunch of stuff into account. So far, I'm pretty pleased with it.
Well, good, good. I'm eager to start it. I know we've had a few teasers here and there through StarWars.com and a couple of excerpts. So, yeah, I'm really eager to get into it.
Uh-huh. All right. Yep. So look for that on the shelves of your local bookstore. Up next, we've got the Star Wars Celebration art show revealed. So for the upcoming celebration in Japan, um, yeah, like every celebration, they solicit artists to submit entries for possible selection to participate in the art show, and then they pick a number of these that they then go ahead and decide to feature in the art show, and then they make prints, a limited number, usually about 250 of each one, available for attendees. This year we get a kind of an interesting collection. We've got 20 total prints revealed on StarWars.com. 5 of those feature Ahsoka. 2
Oh,
feature Padme Amidala. 4, depending on your count. She's a kind of a side character in a couple. And those 2 that feature her are her in her gown that she was wearing when the Trade Federation invaded Naboo. And then we get a number of Japanese artists and Japan styles that are featured in this show as well, which is appropriate given the setting as well. We're not going to go through all 20 prints. Again, you can find all this on StarWars.com easily enough. But pick one of these prints, Jay. Well, we can go back and forth and talk about some of these. What's the first one that stood out to you?
well, that you just kind of referred to is from the Phantom Menace, the red invasion gown, and that's Seth Groves. And this is Padme standing looking out that window. It's that iconic shot. But what I love about this one is that it is in almost like a parchment feel to it, and the edges are imperfect with some gold scroll, and then it's got some Japanese writing down the side, and then you see Darth Maul's reflection in the floor. And
Mhm.
that is just super cool. And what I love about that one is that I do actually have a Kotobukiya print from back from Celebration. I think it was Celebration 4, all the way back to Los Angeles in 2007. And it's very reminiscent of this feel. And it's that longer, portrait mode kind of print. And I would love to put this one on my wall right next to that. And so that's one of the things for me that as I'm looking through these, I'm thinking to myself, okay, like what would I actually frame and put on my wall? What would be a compliment to either something else I own or a decor that I have or whatever. So, yeah, so this one really really stands out to me, and this is definitely something that I would purchase. But do you have a special one or one that sticks out to you?
Every time there's a new celebration and we get to reveal the art show, it always creates this issue that I'm trying to figure out which print I want, because I always try to get one from each celebration I attend. Of course, I'm not attending this one. And so sitting down trying to make myself choose just one of these is a challenge. But the one that I think I would pick is the overwhelming odds. It's the very first one that they put on the webpage, and it's by Jonathan
Mm, mhm.
Beastline. And the reason being is because it's a Revenge of the Sith and style inspired print. And he talks about how he wanted to create a Revenge of the Sith piece because it's the 20th anniversary. And I think that's perfect, because it reflects what's going on at the celebration. We don't really know a whole lot else of what's going to be featured at the celebration right now. But, you've got in the bottom portion of this, you got the Obi-Wan, Yoda, Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Mace Windu. General Grievous is behind them. Above them is our collection of Sith or would-be Sith, and Palpatine, Dooku, and Anakin. You got droids and clones on the two sides, kind of showing the split of this. Republic ships in the upper left and Separatist ships in the upper right. Great color palette on this whole thing. I really like the way that turns out. It would work well in my collection there. So if I was going to attend Celebration Japan, that's probably the one I would go for. What's another one that caught your attention?
That's a good pick, just saying.
Hmm.
So there's a couple for me. I do like the Tracy Easterday Hero's Journey, and that's the one that shows
That'd be my
Ahsoka
second pick. Yeah.
through
Yeah.
through my old, through all of them. I will say though, as much as I love the idea that what Tracy was trying to capture was that she goes through all of the moments of Ahsoka from the very first toddler, when we get from Tales of the Jedi all the way through to Ahsoka the White. And I appreciate that. And there's even some, references to Morai in here and so on and so forth. But she's, and I'm being picky, but I feel like she's missing the iconic Clone Wars animation style Ahsoka of seasons 3 through 6, which is, I think, the most represented form of Ahsoka that is out there. And maybe I'm just partial to that because that's the version that I actually cosplay,
Sure.
but that's the one I feel like we see most often, and it's not in this print. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I that stands out to me. So as far as something as an Ahsoka cosplayer, I would love to have this just because hello, it's Ahsoka. But I
Mhm.
am missing that, I will say. And then a close to that one actually is the droids one. So there's a Brian DeGuire, Never Underestimate a Droid. And this one's very cartoonish and it almost looks like comic panels with all the different droids. But I always say I love me some droids, and I've never seen a composite of a lot of them together. And of course, they're not all of them, but you have, everybody from K2 to BB-8, and even Lola, and of course 3PO and R2 are front and center as they should be. But I mean, there's just tons and tons choppers on there, mouse droids, BD's even in there. So I love to see it. And this is something, like I said, as I'm thinking about something that I would put on my wall, I would totally put this on my wall.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, speaking of the season 3 through 6 Ahsoka, the other one that I like is by Danny Haas called Heroes Broken, Destiny Changed. And it's a Clone Wars print. There's a couple of Clone Wars prints in this collection here, but it's got that Ahsoka you're talking about
Hmm.
front and center
Hmm.
on the print, and then it's got Obi-Wan and Anakin behind her. We get a shot of Darth Maul in the background, Savage Opress, Captain Rex, some Mandalorians, and there. It's a very simple art style that very reminiscent of the Clone Wars, just a bit more stylized with the it's kind of a bit more geometric. But at any rate, that's a very good print as well. So that I think that would be also in my probably in my top 3. But there's another great one. Probably the most realistic looking one is by and I hope I pronounce this correctly, Kinobu Hara Rosho, and there's some Japanese characters in there that I don't know what to do with. But anyways, it's of Plo Koon, and it's very Japanese inspired in there. But it's got Plo Koon in his Clone Wars gear, with his saber ignited in the center. It's a stunning piece, right? And it really, really well done.
It is. Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, and there's so many great artists and so many great renditions and so many different styles of art in these. And I love how StarWars.com went into with each of these prints how they were created, because some of them, it says like Liquitex paints and an airbrush, and then others are with a Wacom tablet and with Photoshop, and all of these different things. And for me though too, I think a lot of these would be fun to use as something like a background for your monitor, on your television or your computer or on your phone or something like that. But again, I just don't have the wall space, as I know you don't, for all these prints, as much as they all would be amazing to own.
Indeed. All right, so you can go online and order those prints if you're heading to Celebration, and good luck on getting the one you want. Well, then, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the news. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust. We hope you've enjoyed the discussion, and if so, hit that subscribe button on your podcatcher of choice if you haven't done so already, and you'll get our weekly look at the news as we get through things like Celebration and other events that are happening later this year. I'd like to remind you, you can find all episodes of the show over on retrozap.com, beyond what's going to be available on your podcatcher of choice. Also, we appreciate your ratings and reviews. Apple Podcast reviews are fantastic. I do want to share a little bit of social media feedback that I kind of liked over on YouTube. A user by the name of @JoesWoods was commenting on our discussion of Hardware Wars. And he says, not sure if it's where you saw it, but I saw Hardware Wars first on HBO. They would play it between movies circa 1982, 1983 maybe. During this time, Close Encounters of the Nerd Time also and I'm not familiar with that, also played between movies, and as a 10-year-old, the pair were by far my favorite featurettes on HBO. I remember checking the TV listings to watch between features in hopes of seeing them. So, that's pretty cool. That may have been where I saw it. I can't remember if we actually had cable at that time, let alone HBO, but I do remember seeing it as a kid.
Yeah, and HBO would be the place because, I mean, at that point in time, it was HBO, Cinemax, and Showtime is what everybody had, and that's what we were gobbling up all of our Star Wars on at that point in time. So, heck, I may have seen it there. Who knows?
All right. Well, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are?
Absolutely. So we are very easily found on Facebook and Instagram, where you can connect with us at Podcast Stardust. And we also have tons of Pinterest boards where you can check out all kinds of fun Star Wars ideas. And as you now just heard, we also have our YouTube outlets. So we have the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So head over to both of those, like, subscribe, share those out. And again, they do support reviews and interactions. And we would love to hear your comments and your feedback on either one of those or both. We also have our TeePublic store, and the link to that is in our show notes. And we do have 7 different show logo designs available. So if you are in need of some new Podcast Stardust swag, you want to get your Death Star ready for the next season of Andor, that would be the place to go. So once again, the link to that is in our show notes, and every purchase does help to support the show. So we would just love it if you would do that, and we appreciate that in advance.
Okay, remind everybody what you got going on in cosplay.
Sure. Right now, kind of quiet. So I actually haven't been posting a whole lot lately, but I am gearing up for Fan Expo Cleveland here towards the end of March. So I will have a lot of new content coming out around that time. And who knows who I'm going to be interacting with there, and celebrities and whatnot. So you'll just have to keep on the lookout for what kind of trouble I'm getting myself into over there. But you can always catch me as Ahsoka, the fourth sister, 2 different versions of Hera, as well as my original concept Mandalorian, and occasionally Leia and a few other things. So once again, that's at j.snips cosplay.
Okay, upcoming on the show on Monday, we'll be getting into the first episode of season 2 of the Clone Wars, so make sure you join us for that. And then on Wednesday, we will be discussing Mace Windu: The Glass Abyss, which was a novel that came out towards the end of last year. So stick around for that one as well. But with that, just want to say thanks for listening to episode 854 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend, and until next time, may the Force be with you.